And just like that, I am back. Thank you for joining tonight's podcast with your host. That will be me, Dina. Whew, it's hot, y'all. You got your ice water, you got your something cold and nice to drink because, baby, it's cold. It is hot outside, okay? So, tonight, we are ready to journey again, okay? But before we go there, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so at this time. And if you've already subscribed, please make sure you hit the notification bell so that you are notified every time I go live. And if you have not watched the previous videos, do yourself a favor and go back and watch them because they all lead up to where we are tonight, okay? And so happy Wednesday because I had to think about the date, right? So this week on Monday, we started a new mini series, okay? So the series we started this week was called The Waiting Period. Yes, honey, it can go a long way with the waiting period, but however, we are going to get into it tonight and we are going to talk about it tonight, okay? Same as we did last night. So last night I started with so this week we are talking about growth. Even though we started the series called The Waiting Period, it's going to be different levels of the waiting period. So this week we started on growth. And last night we talked about spiritual growth. Now, in order for you to know what we talked about, guess what you got to do? You got to go on back over there to yesterday's video and watch it. Because I already told you about it. So, our next level of growth tonight, what we are going to talk about is personal growth. Okay? So, like I said before in this week, that we are tying things together from everything that we have journeyed through so far with the healing and the wholeness and the maximizing your singleness all the way up into identifying your soulmate. So now we've done all of that, but it's still stuff to do while you're in the waiting period. Okay, so that's what we are talking about tonight, the waiting period or the waiting pattern that God has you in until he releases you to go on into that kingdom relationship that's going toward that kingdom marriage, right? So like I said, we're going to talk about tonight personal growth. So let me give you my little definition that I've had for personal growth, right? So even though, I'm telling you, let me start from the top. The waiting period is that season of waiting can feel like a wilderness, but it's often where the deepest roots of growth take hold. So tonight we're talking about personal growth. And it says also flourishes here. This is a time to explore your identity, passions, and purpose outside of a relationship, whether it's developing emotional maturity, setting healthy boundaries, or discovering what truly brings you joy. You're becoming the kind of person who can love well and be loved well in return. So I want to dissect a couple of things right there already. Okay. So let's talk about when it says to discover what truly brings you joy. So I used to always say, oh, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. And then when I found out that being happy is only contingent on what's going on in your life, right? So, but when you have joy, that's a peace that God has given you that no matter what happens, you still are okay with it, right? So, back in the day, I always used to say joy is to let the J represent Jesus, the O represents nothing, and the Y represents you. Let nothing get between Jesus and you. Okay, I'm getting y'all that for free tonight. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to dissect was becoming the kind of person who can love well and be loved well in return. Because in order to get, you got to give, right? So one of the things about on that part that I had learned, I think last year, and it's crazy how I learned it, because maybe it's just me, my perspective. This is what I got from it. It is unconditional love. Like I've heard the word unconditional love before. You think you know what it is. Yes, loving them, whatever. I watched this show called Reasonable Doubt. And I don't know if y'all watch the show. If y'all listen, it's an amazing show, okay? So the lady and her husband were going to therapy. And the therapist told her that she told the therapist that she didn't believe in unconditional love. So the therapist broke it down to her and told her that you don't believe in unconditional love because you've never seen it before. I was like, ooh. He told her that she never received unconditional love because her dad chose alcohol over her. Her mom chose her dad over her, and her husband chose something else over her. So she didn't believe in it because she's never seen it. And I started thinking about that. I was like, wow. Because listen, on this journey, it's been got so deep of making me think of so many different scenarios of my life to that has unraveled. And I'm talking about within 3 years, y'all. It's been so much. And when her husband went to the therapist, he came over to her house that night and he told her that even though you don't love me anymore, you can't stop me loving you because I love you unconditional. I don't care what's going on in your life, what's been happening. I have always been here and will always be here for you, no matter what. And I was blown away because I never seen unconditional love displayed like that. So that gave me a whole different perspective of what unconditional love is. I mean, that's loving somebody past whatever is going on, which is what God calls us to do anyway. But when you get into that husband and wife kind of stuff, I'm sure that's get a little, whew, but you still got to do it. You still have to show unconditional love to your spouse. Okay. I just had to put that in there for y'all because baby, they had blessed me watching this show and when I got that on there. Okay. So let's get into a little more stuff that I have tonight. So personal growth also is healing and wholeness. We've talked about healing and wholeness before, but I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into the wholeness because the Lord showed me some things today about myself that I've been healed and made whole of, and I didn't even recognize it. Okay. It says sometimes God uses the waiting to gently surface wounds or patterns that need healing, whether from past relationships, family dynamics, or self perception. It is a sacred opportunity to let God restore you so you don't carry old baggage into something new. Whew, that was a lot, ain't it? Hi, Angela. Welcome to tonight's journey. Okay, I'm getting into it. Let me read that one more time because let me tell y'all something about this. It says personal growth with healing and wholeness. Sometimes God uses the waiting to gently surface wounds or patterns that need healing, whether from past relationships, family dynamics, or self perception. It is a sacred opportunity to let God restore you so you don't carry old baggage into something new. So let me tell y'all some of my business. I'm finna already jump into it because the Lord had put some stuff on me today, right? When it says about family dynamics, I told y'all before that one of the things that I had to do was release control. And one of the things was controlling about, like, I said that I'm a planner. So I like to plan stuff, right? So that was one of the major things that God dealt with me about releasing control. But let me tell y'all the second thing, and whoo, this was a doozy right here, right? I don't know why my hair making my eyelash do that. Y'all know what that. The second thing was about releasing control and trusting God with my finances. Okay. Whoo, talking about I have grown so much on this right here personally. I be scaring myself sometimes. And long story short, I'm trying to chop it up for you real quick, right? So I've always been the person that always have had money, right? Always. The Lord just always made provision. Like money just come from all places. I've always been that person that If I got to work 2, 3 jobs to get what I need, to take care of what it is, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I need to do. People may think, oh, you like to hustle. No, I don't like to go without. Okay. I don't like to ask nobody for help. I don't like to ask nobody, period. That's the problem in itself, right? So the Lord dealt with me with asking for help. That it's okay to ask for help because everybody goes through different things at different times, and not to be so prideful that you won't ask for help, right? that was one of right. So in dealing with, before I got to that part, like I said, I've always money, just like always, no matter where it come from, it was just always at my disposal. So when I left my job in 2021, I had been there for 13 years. So, I was making pretty good money, had a couple of stashes, had a couple of savings accounts. I'm doing my thing. I was very generous with my money. I'm, blessing people, sending money here. I used to randomly cash out people $100 every time I get paid. I'm just sowing my seeds because that's how my mama taught us to, sow your seeds, right? So, okay, I ain't thinking nothing about it. I'm paying my tithes. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. And all of a sudden, stuff started drying up. Bank accounts started getting low. Saving accounts started getting low. Then they were gone. Secret stash, another secret stash. And this one, the Lord told me that you are too independent, too self-reliant, and you need to release control. And he told me that in that sense, because even though I trusted God, it's different to trust. It's a whole nother level of trusting God. One, when you got the money in the bank, you say, "Oh yeah, yeah, I got this. Yeah, I trust God, but yeah, let me go ahead and transfer this money, pay this note, this house note, or whatever it is." But when you ain't got the money and you trusting God, it's a whole nother level, right? So I apparently had got to the point where I was trusting God a little bit, but I was gonna make it happen, right? So the Lord said, "Okay, I'm just gonna keep on letting her think she doing what she doing, right?" So eventually, all of them dried up. And you talking about trusting God on the level to provide for you when it's 11:50 and the bill due at 12. Whew, that was the struggle, y'all. I'm telling you, it was a struggle because, like I said, I would panic instead of peace because I'm trying to figure out how I'm do this. So then God taught me, said, "Okay, you gonna keep on trying to do it on your own. You're not gonna rely on me. Okay, I got you." So taught me, that was the beginning of my releasing control and being able to trust God on a whole nother level with my personal growth. Because that is a major growth spurt for me, okay? In my personal life, depending on God to take care of me and not just saying it, but to do it. So he brought back to my remembrance on today. And I was like, Lord, I got to tell them this about my business again. Oh, Lord. So here I go again. And I was remembering a time he brought back to my remembrance. And I'm talking about this was last year. Was it last year? No, it was year before last, 2 years ago. I was going to a conference, right? I didn't really want to go to the conference, but every time I said I wasn't going, the Lord always made provision for me to go, right? So I was like, well, apparently it's something that I'm supposed to go and see, right? So by this point now, we some years in. Well, I think they started like a year in. So I'm a year in now, trusting God, which I got to the point where if I done did what I can do, and I just gotta trust God for the rest. I can't worry about it. I can only control what I can control, and that's it. So I'm going to this conference, right? Now I don't think my ticket was paid for, my flight was paid for. Well, no, somebody put my flight on their card, so I was supposed to pay them back, right? So I get a text message the morning before I fly out. And it was a text message my mom sent me of this little girl. She was shouting and she was saying, only God can do it. Only God can do it. So I told my friend who was going with me, I said, girl, when my money come in, I'll be shouting like this little girl right here. Now, y'all, I'm not a shouter, right? But I said, when my money come in, I'm going to be doing this. Now, we still in Memphis. So I was like, okay, Lord, you already know what I need. You know, we already went through what I need. I just need my money to pay my hotel room, and I need some money to eat. I ain't trying to eat all fancy. I just need to put some food in my stomach and get through the conference, right? But then I started saying, now, God said, don't just ask for the little stuff. He said, ask for exceedingly abundantly. Like, I don't want to give you just what you need. I'm going to give you more than you need. So I started saying, no, God, I need enough to take care of what I need, to have some little extra money, whatever else it is I want to do. That's what I need, right? So we go to the airport, and I was like, well, girl, we at the airport now. So if somebody give me some money, they're going to have to send it to me on Cash App because I'm gone. I went to this conference in Dallas. I still had to pay for my room. I think it was $150. And I still had to eat, right? I left with $40 in my pocket. I left with probably $20 on my Cash App. That's all I had, right? So I get on the plane. We get off the plane, check into the hotel, go to the restaurant. Soon as we get to the restaurant, and I flip over my menu, I'm like, okay, I ain't trying to eat all fast. I'm just gonna give me a burger, some fries, feed me or whatever. Baby, as soon as I put that menu in my hand, now you know I ain't finna lie to you. I picked my phone up. First it went off on my watch. I know Cash App number, okay? I picked my phone up. It had a Cash App, y'all, of $500 somebody sent me. I got up from that table and baby, somebody shouting around that little floor and did. I said, girl, she was looking at me like, what is wrong? I said, baby, only God can do it. Not only that, after the $500 came through, another Cash App came through for $150. After that, another one came through for $50 that said have dinner on me. Another one came through for $20. When I say that raised my faith and my expectation up to a whole nother level in God. Baby, you talking about shouting around that place, baby. You thought I was rich with that money, right? I was buying everybody, put up food on my ticket, put it on her. But not only did it show me the growth that I had, that God had took me through that season of relying on Him to take care of me, it showed the people around me, because when I told them my story, I came here with $40. I ain't know how I was gonna pay for nothing, and I ain't even worried about it. Because God told me He got me, and He did. Baby, listen, the people around me was looking like, what? I said, baby, only God can do it, like they said, right? So that is one of my, or it's probably the second one of my transparent moments of personal growth in my life. I have learned to bring it in and to personally just trust God on a whole nother level. Like, it is a process, but it is so worth it. And I know that this still deals with me in the waiting period, because God is still working on some things in me. Was still working where He was still working on that area of my life, because I can't get married and be talking about, oh Lord, we ain't got but this much money. What is we gonna do? Oh my God, I can't fake it. No, I gotta be able to go in there and keep my mind sane and keep it right and go in here and pray and tell God what He already told me. That's it. You gotta have some balance to it. You gotta have that in you where we won't be around here making God look like He crazy, because we like we go around here crazy. But that's, for me, that has been a big testimony for me as personal growth. Because like I told y'all, I was a crier, okay? But I've been delivered, right? And so let's see what else I got on here. So I also had on here, like, what do you do in the waiting period when the wait feels heavy? You have your moments during the waiting period, that you just, some days are much better than others. Some days you ain't got to worry about it. Some days you be good when you're around people, you ain't even thinking about it. But some days you be like, woe is me. And I had on her that, what do you do when you feel the waiting feels so heavy? And guess what it is? You talk to God. You be honest with God. If you tired, tell God you're tired. If you frustrated, tell God you're frustrated. God is not offended by our honesty. He wants us to come to him and tell him what is on our mind and our heart. He says, bring all your burdens to me and lay it at my feet. So he is moved by it. So, we might get in our feelings because I ain't gonna lie to you. During the waiting period, it's a lot of times that you get in your feelings. Doesn't mean that you haven't grown spiritually, doesn't mean that you haven't grown personally. It just means that you are human and you still have feelings and your emotions, and sometimes they up, sometimes they down, but it still is a process to it. So God still wants you to come to him and talk about it. You are right, Angela. You have to think about all that he's brought you through. And even with knowing what he brought you through, you still have your moments. Like I had a moment today, and that's why he brought me back to my remembrance. You remember this? And this wasn't even long ago. And I started really thinking about it because even with the conference, like the Woman Evolve conference, I've never been to conferences before, right? So I went to Woman I Loose with my mom. Her and my dad, they sent me to Woman Dalus. I didn't really want to go, but they said let's go, so they treated me, so I went. And at the end, my mom told me that God told her to get me there. When I went to Woman Dalus, it did something in me that I had never seen before. Like I've never cried like that in public, but it felt like I don't know if y'all remember when Bishop Jakes passed the torch to his daughter and how she broke down crying, and he was like, this is not just for Sarah, this is for every woman that is missing something or feels like she's missing something in her life. When I tell you I broke down crying because I felt like he was talking to me and he was passing the torch to me. And that was the beginning of a whole new journey for me, right? And so going from Woman Loose to Woman Evolve, I still wasn't gonna go because I feel like I don't know what just happened to me while we in Atlanta at this conference, but that has never happened to me. It was like something came out of my body and just was like free and just like, okay, let's go. And I went to Woman Evolve the next year. I wasn't even planning on going to Woman Evolve because I felt like I got what I needed, but apparently God said no. So even the next year, which was my first year, somebody paid for my ticket to go then too. I was like, well, dang, I wasn't trying to go. And even from my hotel, like somebody took care of my hotel. Like who does that? And the next year, which was last year, guess what? Somebody did the same thing. Somebody bought my ticket. Somebody paid for my flights. Somebody paid for my hotel room. And then even one of my clients gave me her credit card and told me do not come back without spending nothing on her card. And you know what I did? I bought a souvenir for her with her credit card because she ain't gonna bully me around like that. But even while I was at the hotel, people just was sending me money. And like I didn't ask nobody for no money. Nobody knew if I had something going on or what I had going on. God apparently put it in their spirit, right? So, but I felt like attending the conference with the Woman Evolve, I was really evolving into something that I had never felt before, I've never seen before. And that has a big part of why I'm here talking to y'all tonight, okay? It's part of my journey. And I remember when we first got to a Woman Evolve the first year, and they was coming around with the cameras and speaker, and they was saying, they told them give me the mic. I said, I don't want no mic. Y'all wouldn't believe it, but I don't like talking like that. I can talk to y'all all the time, like in person, but like a platform or talking to somebody, no, I don't have to do that. So they gave me the mic and they was like, do it. And one lady told me, she said, I'm telling you, God telling you to do this. You don't know what it's for. So I got on the mic and I talked about my experience from Woman Dalus to Woman Evolve, whatever. Told her where I was from. They put it on the video screens and everything. Well, little did I know, when I sat down, Miss Dunn said, I'm telling you, God told you to do that. You don't know what's going to happen. Baby, by the time I got back to Memphis a couple of weeks later, I was a co-chair of the singles ministry. And we did a whole panel live in Bible study where I had to sit on the panel and talk to people about my single journey. And I was like, what? Like people watching us all over and I got to sit over and talk? Oh my God. We just told me to talk to the mic on the mic with the people when I was just in Atlanta. So not Atlanta, in Texas. So now I'm back at church sitting on the stage again. And that kept going. And now I'm here with y'all. Like, God has a sense of humor, and God does things so way beyond our mindset or our imagination. Like they say, He's able to do exceedingly abundantly above whatever we can ask or think. And so, like I said, Woman Evolve has, baby Dina has evolved. Personal growth has went through the roof. Like, but it's changed to not who I used to be, not in a bad way, but in a great way, molding and shaping me. So that has been a big part of my waiting period as well. And that's been in the last 2 years, 3 years. So the waiting period has a time and a season. So as we go through the waiting season, it's just easier to embrace it, to continue to work, continue to serve, continue to grow personally, heal wounds. I'm talking about, even I had wounds to heal that I'm thinking to myself that I'm good. I'm ready. No, ma'am. It started bringing things up from my childhood that I had no idea I felt that type of way because of things. But it started coming out. He started revealing things. But I had to go back, have conversation with my parents of a way that I felt that was affecting me in my adulthood. So I didn't even think about it until we were sitting down talking, and a lady told me, if you would talk to your mom, your season of marriage will come sooner. And I knew what she was talking about. I just didn't tell her I knew what she was talking about. I just looked at her like she was crazy because I didn't know her. She didn't know me. But I knew what she was talking about. And guess what I did? As soon as she said, if you apologize to your mom, your season of marriage will come sooner. I knew exactly what she was talking about. So I got my little tail off that plane. I went to work that Monday. And as soon as I got out of work, guess what I did? Went to my parents' house and sat down and had a conversation with my parents that I had not done since I've been grown. So a lot of time, even with personal growth, and like they said about family dynamics, this lady that I talk to all the time, she always asks me why. And if I say, like, I don't want to do this, she be like, why? I'm like, I don't know, I just don't want to do it. And then she started making me go back and say, well, what happened? She would say, what happened to you before that makes you not want to do that? So I started thinking about it. And I think one of the things she asked me about was, no, I'm going back. So one of the things, like with my parents, I ended up talking about that my parents have been married for 40, I'm going to be 46, 45 years this year, right? So it's always been my mom and dad in the house, right? So my dad has always been the entrepreneur, the sole provider, and my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom or whatever. So for me on the outside looking in, I looked at it as my dad took care of my mom is what I should have been looking at. But on the other, what I was looking at was how I seen it in my sight, because I didn't see that other places. I had a problem because she would have to kind of check in with my dad about finances and other stuff. And I didn't like that, because me growing up, even though I should have took that as something positive for them, I took that as, I'm not ever asking a man for nothing. I'm gonna work and do whatever I need to do, and I'm just not gonna do it. So not only did it go from a man, it went from anybody else, that I made it upon myself not to ask for help because I seen that. So when I got out that plane and I went and talked to my parents, you know what they told me? This is something that we had already set and agreed upon over 40 years ago. And I'm on the outside looking in like I thought it was something different, but it's something they agreed upon. But because it was not seen in other places, and I seen it at home, but I seen something totally different from what I thought I seen. But that affected me in my adulthood life because I had built myself up not to ask nobody for nothing. I was like, no, I ain't gonna be nobody housewife because you ain't gonna be issuing me no money, no telling me what to do, none of that kind of stuff. I don't finna do all that. But guess what? It still came back to bite me when I was grown, when I was older, because I was, I think, going out on a date or something. I was like, well, no, I ain't got no money, so I ain't going. So I didn't want to go on a date because they always teach us don't never go nowhere without no money. I always have enough to pay for your own food. All this stuff they build up in you when you're independent, that they don't tell us how to let it go. And so in my mind, I was like, no, I ain't doing that. No, I ain't going. I'm good. So that affected me. That way back growing up into my adult life now, and I'm 45 years old. I was 44 at that time. So guess what? I still had to go back and rectify that. Once I had that conversation with my parents, which is something that a lot of us need to go back and do, have conversation with our parents about stuff that affects us in our adult life that we don't know why. We just know that we don't want to do this. I urge you tonight to go back and think about the things that you don't want to do, that you think that you may be healed from, but you're not, and have the conversations. I'm telling you, it'll free you. And talking about personal growth, our personal growth is continuing to grow because of that conversation. Like I said, we've never had a conversation like that before, but now we're open and we have more. So that has been a huge thing on my personal growth, right? So I'm going to end with this. Yes, Angela, each life experience does strengthen you. But sometimes I feel like it's about to take you out before it take you up. But just hold on. Hold on a little while longer, right? And to close out, I'm going to pose this question. You can drop down in the chat what it is, your answer, and I'm going to tell you mine. It says, what's been the most surprising thing you have learned about yourself while you wait? The most surprising thing that I've learned about myself while I wait is hmm, that I didn't trust God on the level that I should have been. And trusting him now on that level, if I would have been able to do that back then, who knows what I have been. But we're not gonna worry about back then because to everything is a season. So I do trust him now on a whole nother level. And I just encourage you to, like I said, have the conversations, get it, continue to work on your personal growth. And we're going to continue to go up. We're going to continue to level up night by night, right? So that's all I got for you tonight. I didn't mean to hold y'all this long, but I had to give you what God gave me today, all right? So thank you, Miss Tidwell. Good to see you on tonight. You and Angela, thank you for conversation with me tonight. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed tonight's podcast. I hope that I have delivered some things that you can marinate and meditate on. I hope that I've given you something that will just draw you a little bit closer to God and to encourage you to continue to trust God while you wait in the waiting period. Because one thing that He's always saying is, it's going to be worth the wait. Okay. Until tomorrow night at 7, I'll see you then.